Okay, I don't know what just happened there, but um, kind of got thrown off there. So I don't know what happened, but we kind of got thrown off there. That's neither here nor there. So sometimes we have malfunctions on Facebook. All right, so but that's neither here nor there. Nevertheless, we'll keep it moving. And welcome back, so we can get into the lesson. Go from there. All right. I don't know what happened with that, but let's see how this goes. I thank everyone for joining, and we'll be starting here shortly and moving into our lesson. All right, let's see here. Thank everyone for definitely joining, logging in, tuning in as we get into our lesson tonight. It's going to be an interesting lesson. All right, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. As I said, man, on Fridays, definitely try to get two lessons in because I said on my weekend is pretty tied up, so I won't be with you guys on tomorrow or on Sunday. So we try to get in at least two lessons on Friday, one in the afternoon and one in the evening for those who've gotten home and gotten settled, and that way their weekend to carry them over their weekend, so that the body is edified. It's many people have always asked the question of what does it take to get God to move in their lives, to activate Him, or what is dear to His heart. If you want to move God and have Him to move in your life, there are two major keys in which very few often people tend to use both of these keys, one for the top lock and one for the bottom lock. You have on one hand, you have those who believe, but yet they lack humility. They're humble, they're arrogant. You have on the other token those who don't believe, such as atheists and different people of that nature. They don't believe, but yet they're the most humble people in the world. Imagine seeing believers who have humility, or who is humble. If you want, what's going on, brother? If you want the Lord to move in your life, these are two major areas. And when I'm talking about moving in your life, I'm talking about impacting people, as well as the Lord opening doors for you that prosper you and your family. Faith and humility is what get God to respond in what gives you results. If it's reaching people, or if it's something that you desire that's in your heart, that falls in His will. So we're going to deal with these two areas, and we're going to also bridge them together to give you an understanding. And we're going to be able to see the results of faith and being humble. Because you can believe and have all this information and revelation and yet be arrogant. But the Lord is looking for people who believe but function in humility. Those are the ones that moves God or touches his heart and cause him to respond immediately. Now give me a second here. We're going to let Facebook continue to do its job with the invitations. And we're going to start in about 2 minutes. All right. Appreciate everybody for jumping on tonight. And it's going to be an awesome lesson here. All right. Feel free. You can always invite your friends if you want. Invite them out for the lesson. Also, don't forget to hit me up and subscribe to my YouTube page. Just search Evangelist Majors on YouTube and subscribe. That way you can get update information on when I post a video. All right, so awesome, Brother Robert, awesome. All right, we're almost here. Whoa. All right, all right. Man, amen, amen. All right, let's get into this this lesson, today's lesson. Again, or tonight's lesson, before we depart, and I'll catch you guys on Monday if it's the will of God. Faith and humility equals results. Now let's get into the scriptures and let's look at and get a demonstration, an example of how the Lord moves with faith and humility. All right, so Matthew chapter number 8, verse number 1. When he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. All right, so now we got a glimpse of seeing in Matthew chapter number 8, a crowd, which is very common when Christ walked. There was always a crowd around. The thing that I love about Christ and his humility, and he would never let the crowd uplift him and make him out to be a deity. He allowed the crowd, every time they would begin to try to propel him and push him up as a king, he would slip away and vanish on them. How many of us would vanish from the crowd when they wanted to celebrate us? But he very well understood that it wasn't about him, it was about the will of his Father and his Father getting the glory. How many of us would allow the crowd to put us up on their shoulder and prance us around like we just won national championship? But yet Christ, in his humility, Christ Every time the crowd would get around and begin to murmur and talk, and all of a sudden when he performed something, or he did a miracle, or said some awesome words, every time the crowd would look to elevate him, he would slip away. And they'll look around and be like, where did he go? That speaks volume. That speaks volume of one who's laying forth a demonstration about being a servant leader. That's servant leadership. Because the mission isn't about me. It's about my Father and me pleasing him. Let's continue. Let's see about this crowd. This crowd following. We were in chapter 8, but the crowd didn't start in chapter 8. The crowd started in chapter 5. Precept, chapter 5, verse 1 through 3. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into the mountain. Remember, in chapter 8, he's coming down out of the mountain. This is the same crowd been following him from chapter 5. He went up into the mountain. His purpose of going up into the mountain is to get something to his disciples. Because he understands that the crowd is going to take something away. So he creates an environment where he can teach, because he's the master teacher, right? To teach his disciples without having the distractions of someone interrupting. This is a lesson. The crowd is following. So he went up into the mountains, and he went and was set. His disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them. He didn't sit there and talk about the crowd. He wasn't amazed at, oh, you look at the crowd going crazy over my punchline, and man, I sure was rocking the crowd when I was rapping. Or, man, did you see how I scored that touchdown and shook the brakes off of that dude? I broke his ankles. His focus was not the crowd. Many of us can't fulfill our mission because we're so worried about the crowd and getting the acceptance of the crowd. We work so hard to create and build crowds. And none of us are working extra hard in building humility, in building faith. If you work extra hard to build humility and faith, the Lord will make your name great. And the people will begin to talk without you having to do anything. So Christ is not concerned isn't the crowd. He's trying to teach his disciples something. That word disciple means continuous learners. They were continuously learning. That's why he would say, hey, how long am I going to be with you? They were continuously learning until they got to the place where they were learned, then they became apostles. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. He's teaching them humility because he knows that the crowd is going to follow them one day. So he doesn't want them to get caught up in the crowd. See, that's a great teacher. How many of us as leaders have disciples that we're teaching? We're teaching our disciples in this modern era how to build crowds. And Christ is teaching them the very opposite. He's teaching them it's not about the crowd. But we think that success is based off the size of the crowd. And Christ is saying, listen, disciples, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He's not focused on the crowd. Many of you take your focus off the crowd and focus all of your attention on your Heavenly Father. Do your job and let Him do His. Don't get caught up in trying to build the crowd. Let's read. Let's go back to Matthew chapter number 8. Matthew chapter number 8, verse number 2. And behold, there came a leper and worshiped Him. Now see, many people try to take this and make Christ say, oh, He was a deity. He broke the law. The first law said, thou shalt not worship no other God before me. He is a blasphemer. Christ never told him to worship Him. The scripture says right here in verse number 2, there came a leper and worshiped Him. He didn't tell the leper to do it. So, well, He didn't stop it. Well, this is the thing. You have to look at something and understand this. That word worship is not in the very context in which we think it is in the English. It was a level of honor, not idolatry, brothers and sisters. It was a level of honor. It was a level of respect. Many people did that within the Hebraic culture. When you came to someone's house, they showed you honor. And they showed you respect. Something that we lack today. He worshiped and saying, if thou wilt. So basically he says, Master, his state of mind is humility. He's a humble leper. By the very statement, if thou wilt, he understands that I've tried everything. I've been to every doctor. No one can help me. I have an incurable disease. But if thou wilt, if you will, you can make me whole. He began to speak the very thing. He began to speak his healing into his own life. If thou will, thou can. It's just like the Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. We know that our God can, but even if He don't, He's still our God. The leper is saying the same thing. If you will, I know you can. The level of humility. You can make me whole. Now watch this. Verse number 3. And Jesus put forth His hand and touched him, saying, I will. Be thou clean. Immediately he was made whole. The leprosy was gone. Now watch this. Many of us who aren't mature enough will take that and make it a teachable moment. You have to understand when it's time for a teachable moment and when it's time to just let things marinate. When someone gets healed, or when someone goes through a deliverance process, or something that God has done in their life, sometimes that's not a moment for you to begin to teach and preach to them. Christ didn't teach him. He taught his disciples. They had to carry the torch. The leper didn't need a teaching. He needed a healing. Can we recognize when it's time to teach and when it's time to heal? It says, Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will. Be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Now watch Christ. Watch what he does. Verse 4. And Jesus saith unto him, see thou tell no man, because I'm not concerned about the glory for myself. This isn't about me. Don't tell nobody I did this. How can on one hand you say that Christ is having a man, but on the other hand, he turns around and tells him, don't tell no one. The very same verse cuts and contradicts anything that anybody want to say about him worship. He never lifted himself up to worship. In fact, he would slip away. And in this context, in this very verse, it said, don't tell no one, but go thy way. I'm going to give you an instruction. Don't tell no one I did this, but go your way. But it's one thing that you have to do, which is according to the law. Because we know Christ wasn't lawless. He saith unto him, he's talking about the leper, see thou tell no man, but go thy way. Show thyself to the priest. Don't tell no one I did this, but go and show thyself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded. Why does he have to show himself to the priest? Because he's a leper. And now once you become a leper, you can't come within feet or miles of the city. You're an outcast. The only person that can bring you back into the community according to the law is the priest. The priest has to give you a letter of permission to return back to the community. Now imagine. You can't just go sleep in the other room when you get a flu. When you got leprosy, you just can't go in the other room and sleep in the bed so the family don't catch the flu. When you have leprosy, you have to leave the city. Imagine the city that you're in and you get leprosy and you got to go outside the city to live. This leper is in a state of desperation. The only person that can help him has just come over the mountain from teaching his disciples, but yet a crowd is still following him. And yet his attention is not on the crowd. His attention is on the leper who he spots a mile away. And the leper comes to him. He didn't shun him away like we do. The leper was humble. Christ was humble. The leper had faith. And Christ believed that he could heal him. Faith, humility gets results. The leper had faith. He was humble and he got results. He moved the heart of the Most High God because of his faith and his humility. Go show thyself to the priest and offer the gift of Moses that was commanded of you, for a testimony unto them. Now, let's get that. Precept to the priest. Leviticus chapter number 14, verse 1. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest. Soon as the leper was healed by Christ, what did he do? He said, don't go tell nobody, but go and do and follow the law. The law says that if you're cleansed, you have to go to the priest to get a permission slip. Christ didn't say, okay, now you're cleansed, go back to the community. No, he followed the procedures and instructions of his father that spoke to Moses. He gave him instructions. This is the law of the leper. Even the leper had laws. This is the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest. And the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, not no filthy birds that can't fly, and a cedar wood and scarlet and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel overrunning with water. remember Christ told him, he says right here, go back. Christ told him, he said, in verse number 4, show thyself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded. What is that gift? Let's see here. Let's go back to Leviticus. The gift is verse number 4. Then shall the priest be commanded to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. That is the gift that the leper must present to the priest. And the priest shall command that one of the 2 of the birds be killed. All right, that's a part of the offering of the leper of the law. In an earthen vessel over running water. Let's read. All right, let's go back to Matthew chapter number 8. Faith, humility equals results. And when Jesus was into Capernaum, all right, we're going to break that word down. Capernaum. There came unto him a centurion beseeching him. Caper means village. Naum means comfort. So Capernaum or Capernaum means village of comfort. Every word in the Bible, when you see different words of cities and names after children are being named, all of these, all right, sister, all of these things have meanings. Cities aren't just named just to be named, but they have meanings. And we see here Capernaum, all right, equal village of comfort. So Christ enters the village of comfort. And when Jesus was entering the village of comfort, there came unto him a centurion beseeching him and saying, Lord, my servant lieth home sick with the palsy, or paralyzed, or paralysis. And he's grievously tormented. And Jesus said unto him, I will come and heal him. Now this is a Gentile, okay? For those brothers who say, oh, Christ didn't fool with him. He banished the Gentiles. No, come on, man. This is not a Grecian. This is not a Jew living as a Gentile. This is a natural blood Gentile. Christ said, I'll go to your crib. Now watch the faith and the humility of the centurion. I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy. That's humility. He's humbling himself. This is a man of authority who have a form of authority over the Jews or the Hebrews, because Rome is in power at this time and they have authority over Jerusalem. But yet I've tried every god that I have. In Rome, you can have as many gods as you want. You just can't put them above Caesar. And this guy, I can hear him say, I've tried I've tried the water god, the fire god, the Egyptian gods, the astrology god. I've tried every god, the money god, all of them. And none of them cannot hear my servant. Notice it didn't say slave. I've tried them all. You're it. I know none of those other dead, breathless gods can do anything. I've gotten to a level of desperation. Sometimes the Lord will allow you to get to a place of desperation because you're so codependent on everything and everybody else. He'll wait till you get rid of all of that junk to show up, because now he can get your heart. And he can get you to a place of humility, which will cause your faith to grow. And Jesus said unto him, I will come and heal him. And the centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy. I don't need you to come to my house. See, most of us, we got to see something before we believe. This is the reason why we can't get God to move in our life. This is the very reason why We are prolonging God from activating and having results in our lives because we don't believe unless we see. He told Abram, go and I will show. He didn't say, I'll show you, then you go. The centurion said, I don't need you to come to my house. I don't need to see nothing. Because I believe. That's why I'm coming to you. I've tried everything. I'm out of options. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou should come. That's humility. I'm not even worthy for you to come to my door. You're more awesome and more worthy than to step foot in my house. You're too gracious to step foot into my house. My house isn't worthy to grace your presence. That's a level of humility. He's about to get his results. I am not worthy that thou should come under my roof. But speak the word. Lord, I don't need to see you move in my life. All I need you to do is just speak it. Can we get to that place to where we just say, Lord, just speak the word? I don't need to see. I don't need you to come walking with me. I don't just say, speak the word. I believe it. That moves God. But we living in a world where all we want to do is see stuff. We're always seeking a sign. That's why we're going to be deceived. No, Lord, speak the word. I don't need to see. I don't need you to come. I just need you to speak the word. But speak the word only. Oh man, he isolated. He isolated the word by saying only. Don't move. You don't have to, I don't have to see you do anything. I don't need you to blink. I don't need you to tell nobody to go do it. Just speak it only. Don't put on your shoes. Just sit right where you're at and speak the word. And I know if you speak while I'm standing here, that by the time I get home, my servant is healed. But speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. It's the same thing. We're looking at two different nations, Gentile and Jew. The leper is the Jew. How do we know that? Because Christ tells him to go to the priest according to the law. The Gentile, he doesn't tell him anything about going to any priest, but the Gentiles weren't given a law. He's dealing with two different nations. And both of them have faith and humility. And both of them get results. Both of them don't need to see anything. But yet they got results. Two different nations. Matthew chapter 8, verse number 9. For I am a man under authority. Christ, I know you have authority. That's why I don't need you to come. Because your words are power all by itself. You don't have to touch. You don't have to do it. Just speak the word. You are a man of authority. Your words alone holds power. So I don't need you to come to my house. I don't need you to perform for me. I need you to speak the word. That's it. Because I'm humble and I believe. My humility and my belief is what allows me to know that if you speak it, it's going to manifest. For I am a man also under authority, having soldiers under me. I'm a man, it's just like you're a man with authority. You have disciples who are under you. I've tried everything. Every god in the book that Caesar allows me to have. But yet none of them have gotten my servant well. None of them have activated anything. I'm on my last leg. I'm desperately seeking help. And I know that you're the only way. And yet I believe. So speak the word only. And I say to this man, go, and he goeth. And another cometh, and he cometh. And to my servant, do this, and he doeth it. The centurion says, I have power also. But when it comes to you, this power means nothing to me. Yes, I'm a man of authority. And I can tell people to go and do this and all that. But this power that I have, this carnal power, and this carnal authority means nothing. I'm willing to lay it all on the line just for you to heal my servant. Sometimes you standing up for somebody else is what activates God to move in your life, to get results. Your faith in someone else, for someone else, your humility for someone else, gets someone else results. Most of us got to the place where we're at now because we had someone standing in the gap for us. Big Mama standing in the gap for us. As much foolishness as we did out in the streets. Yet she prayed. Her faith and her humility, when we didn't have either, got us to the place that we're at right now. Faith and humility equals results. That causes God to move in our lives. Verse number 10. When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to them that followed, verily I said, now he's talking to the crowd. Now in verse number 1, Christ paid no attention to the crowd. In Matthew chapter 5, Christ paid no attention to the crowd. But yet the crowd followed with him from chapter 5 all the way to chapter 8. Once he got to the leper, Christ still paid no attention to the crowd because it was not about the crowd. In chapter 5, he taught his disciples instead of speaking to the crowd. But now, his Father is about to get glory. And he looks at the crowd. You want some attention? You want me to speak to you? Now is the time for me to speak to you. Because my Father is about to get some glory. And when Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to them, to the crowd, verily I say unto you. Because he's making a point here. The first was they understood their own fellow brethren who was a Hebrew who had leprosy. Christ tells him, now that you're healed, tell no one, go to the priest according to the law so that you can be committed back to the community. He's dealing with a Gentile who does not have the law or who was never given the law. And Christ used the Gentile to show Israel how they should believe and how much humility they should have. If you want to move me and my Father, this is how you do it. He begins to speak to the crowd because he's the master teacher. So he uses everything at his disposal to teach. Everything. A great teacher takes the pen and uses it to his disposal to teach. He'll take a piece of lint, a piece of paper from bubblegum wrap, eyeglasses, everything in his environment becomes a teachable tool. And he begins to teach his disciples. He began to teach the crowd. Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith. There it is. That's one. See, in verse number 9, the centurion showed his humility. And in verse number 10, he showed his faith in the previous verses. He showed his humility in verse number 9. And so now Christ is confirming his faith and his humility. This is what got him results for his servant. Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith. No, not in Israel. I have not found so great a faith or humility amongst my own people. It's funny how your own people act arrogant towards you. It's funny how your own people put you down and don't believe in you. We see this to the very day. Those who do good, we frown upon. Those who do evil and bad, we celebrate. Verse number 11, and I say to you that many shall come from the east and the west, and shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Now let's look at this faith. Let's see this here. Not in Israel. Isaiah chapter 1, verse number 3. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel does not know. My people does not consider. They don't know who they are. They don't consider it. They don't care. They lack humility and they lack faith. On one end, they either got faith and they're arrogant, or on the other end, they don't believe and they're humble. Christ said, I haven't seen no one in Israel obtain faith and humility. The Pharisees are arrogant. They don't believe. They put more faith in the law as salvation, and yet it causes them not to be humble. All right. Let's finish up here. Isaiah chapter 2, verse number 2. Many people shall come, and it shall come to pass in the last days. This is a precept that Christ is speaking of. He's quoting from Isaiah. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountains of the land, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways. This is in the last days. This is when we get ready to go into New Jerusalem. And we will walk in his paths. This is the Gentiles talking here. For out of Zion shall go forth the law. Even the kingdom of God has laws and structure. For out of Zion shall go forth the law. These are Gentiles talking. And they're going to receive. And the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, that's New Jerusalem, But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. Why? Because 2/3 of them don't consider, they don't care, they have no faith, they aren't humble, and they're lawless. Only a third is going to make it. 2/3 aren't. Shall be cast into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So if you don't be humble, or if you don't humble yourself, there is no place for pride in the kingdom. Verse 13, and Jesus said unto the centurion, go thy way, and as thou hast believed. You were humble, and you had faith. So be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the selfsame hour. His faith and his humility is what got him results. The leper, his faith and his humility is what got him results. We're seeing two different nations, two different status of people in one chapter, both obtained the very same thing that got them results: faith and humility. Well, brothers and sisters, that ends our lesson. This was a short lesson. And I thank all of you for joining. Again, be humble, have faith and humility. That's what moves the heart of God and gets you results. I'll see you guys soon. We'll be in Richmond, Virginia, and in Jacksonville, Florida. Check my page for the flyer and information and details. And I can't wait to see you guys again. I'll see you on Monday. And remember, stay faithful, stay humble, get results. Man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Plant yourself by the rivers of water that flows through Christ. As this world darkens, let your light shine. Grace to you.